Recently, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe unanimously voted for a resolution to transfer frozen Russian state assets to a fund dedicated to reconstructing Ukraine. Russia decried this move as banditry and theft, but Western institutions are determined to make Moscow pay for the extensive damage caused by its war. Historically, reparations from the losing side of a war are seldom voluntary. However, with enough political will from the West, mechanisms can be established to ensure Russia compensates Ukraine even before the conflict ends. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned Russians to become familiar with the terms of reparations and compensation. In November 2022, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution supported by 94 member countries calling for war reparations to Ukraine. Russia dismissed this as an attempted robbery. As of January 2023, Kyiv estimated the damage at $700 billion, a figure that has since risen significantly. The destruction of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant alone caused losses of $2 billion, with the toll continuing to rise as Russia targets Ukrainian infrastructure. War reparations are a relatively recent practice, typically enforced by the victors on the defeated. Post-World War I, the Treaty of Versailles required Germany to pay 226 billion Reichsmarks to the victorious Entente countries. While the harsh reparations are often cited as a factor in Hitler's rise to power, the reality is more complex, involving a confluence of revolutions, the collapse of empires, and the rise of dictatorships across Europe. Post-World War II reparations were handled more prudently. The Potsdam Conference decided on the confiscation of German assets and the division of the country into zones controlled by the Allied powers. The Soviet Union, having suffered the most, received priority over industrial areas. German prisoners of war were used extensively, often under brutal conditions. Reparations included cultural property, such as the infamous Priam's treasure, taken to the Soviet Union. The Gulf War set another precedent when the UN Security Council decided to collect payments from Iraq for Kuwait. Iraq was ordered to pay $52.4 billion in damages, with a special fund created to collect Iraqi oil revenues for this purpose. However, Iraq's payments continued until February 2022, reflecting the challenges of enforcing such reparations. Compelling a nation like Russia to pay reparations is challenging. Historical examples like the protracted Serbia-Croatia dispute and the unresolved compensation claims from the downing of a Ukrainian airliner by Iran highlight the difficulties. The post-invasion scenario in Ukraine mirrors past conflicts with its genocide, infrastructure destruction, and environmental disasters. In 2022, the Center for Economic Policy Research published a detailed recovery plan for Ukraine, advocating for immediate action rather than waiting until the war ends. They argue for a Marshall Plan-like initiative, with funding managed by an EU-authorized agency and independent donors. Crucially, Russia should contribute, but how? Seized Russian property, such as yachts, real estate, and bank accounts, could be used for reparations. Although proving ownership and linking assets to damages will be challenging, the potential rewards justify the effort. The decisions of international tribunals could influence Western states' willingness to transfer frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. Although these processes are separate, analysts highlight that Ukraine can receive reparations either voluntarily through a peace treaty or forcibly by seizing Russian assets abroad. Given the current conflict dynamics, the latter is more likely to rely on the active support of governments and courts in countries where these assets are held.